Hello, I'm Alison Fornés, and I'm going to share with you today. I'm a systemic constellations facilitator, and I want to share with you an exercise that I use very often, and it's so simple. I mean, what's wonderful about this exercise is it the map is very simple. So, and you know, it's kind of deceptively simple exercise. I'm referring. I'm calling it the triangle exercise here. And many systemic constellations facilitators use some version of this. The triangle, of course, is an archetype of creation, and what you see on the screen is a description of how these forces come together. These points in the triangle that is be seen in the work of the Regenesis group and Carol Sanford. And so I'm using I'm naming these 3 points in the triangle as activating, restraining, and reconciling according to that work, Carol Sanford's work. But those 3 points really could be anything. But I think for now, this is a useful starting point. And you can see for yourself how this triangle exercise, you can evolve it the more you use it. So in the conversation I had with Ava, one of the things we speak about is how conflict is inherent in change. And in particular, when we are here to align with a new paradigm, we are saying no. So we are saying yes to a new system, new field of harmony. We are saying no to oppressive and extractive systems, to the field of harm. And that really is, in my view, the core shift that we are making. And naturally, all who benefit from the old system will resist such change, and all who fear the change for whatever reason will resist such change. And in fact, I think there are ways, even in me as a person who considers herself to be aligning fully with a new paradigm of harmony, there are certainly places inside of me where I think I'm still generating harm in some ways. And so even for me, I experience a conflict. And that conflict, of course, is an embodied conflict. So I might be able to ignore things with my mind, but my body can feel the conflict. Some other part of me is sensing the conflict. The triangle exercise is a great way to gain an embodied understanding of the field of what is changing or being asked to change, or the old paradigm, and the field of what is being created, the field of your vision, the field of the new. And also we can use the same exercise to then inquire into what does the reconciliation feel like? So for today, I want you to think about something in the world that you know needs to change, and maybe it is in some state of change. If I were to choose an issue today, for example, I might choose the police force, policing. And then would become at the center of the triangle. And then I would want to inquire with my body and my sensing capacity, my expanded knowing, by stepping into that point in the triangle that represents the activating force. What does the activating force of policing feel like in my body? What does the restraining force of policing feel like in my body? And what does the reconciling force of policing feel like in my body? So I'm going to just describe the process, and then um, I'll leave you to experience the process. So I'll give you a little bit more detail. When I do this exercise, usually what I do is I will stand up and I will imagine that triangle on the floor in front of me. And I don't just immediately jump in. So for example, if I'm doing policing, I am going to look at that triangle on the floor with policing in the center. And when I'm ready, I will step into the center and just feel policing in my body. Something I want to um, note that I've learned through this process is that because I will be merging with that information in my body, I'm also going to check for consent and in my body and even with the information. Now, this is a very subtle thing. We're working with information fields. It's like, if I pick a flower, I have a lot of power. I can just pick that flower. And I can also check with myself and check with the flower. Can I pick you? Can I pick this flower? Or, so I'm naming this because for me, in making the transition from a field of harm to a field of harmony, we need to acknowledge the the other, the one I'm in relationship with. Acknowledge, honor, respect in some way. Acknowledge. So the act of seeing that this other is a being of its own is an act of harmony, an act of that which really is already living the new paradigm. So I do that even with information. I've learned to do that even with information. So as I prepare, I look at that field. In this case, I'm going to be looking at the field of policing. And I'm going to actually bring my own sense of respect and acknowledgement to that information that I'm going to step into. And when I'm ready, then I step into the center and I give myself some time to feel what it feels like. If you're new to this, that will be a felt sense. For me, that will be a felt sense in my body. That can be some thoughts that might arise, some fragments of thoughts or fragments of images, an emotional tone or quality. There can be all sorts of information. All of our senses, all of our physical senses have subtle components, and we turn those on when we are intentionally stepping into the field in this way. So I step in the field, I feel what I feel, and then I move into the activating force, then the restraining, and then the reconciling. Again, feeling each time what I feel, and then I'll step out and I will take a note, journal, what did I learn? Or if I'm working in a group, we'll talk about what we learned. If I'm working in a group, I can also have different people represent those points. And so if I have 3 people or if I have 4 people, maybe one person is representing policing in the center and the other 3 are representing the other points in the triangle. So that's another way to do this exercise. So you can do it by yourself, you can do it with a group. Okay. Once I have done that field, I can shift to the new field. So if I'm doing policing, the next thing I want to do is my vision. What is my vision for what the next form would look like? What maybe I have a vision for defunding the police or abolishing the police. What does that field look like? And so I can step into the center and put my vision in the center now. And again, Don't jump over maybe I jumped over it, but don't jump over the taking a moment to acknowledge and respect this new entity, this new imagined field that you're creating. You step in, you move through the triangle. You take notes, you report to each other if you're working in a group, etc. Doing this, just this part, now that you've done these two different fields, now this opens up a whole line of insights and new inquiry. Maybe you can start to ask questions. So for example, if you notice the activating force in one, that it feels that it feels resistant and defined, it can't even look at the other forces, whatever. When you notice certain dynamics, it begins to open up questions, and you can use these same triangle exercise now to further to set up a question, as to ask into a new relationship between these 3 points as you notice things when you're exploring the triangles in this way. Okay, so then the third thing that you can do, so that's one triangle, two triangle. I'm going to give you a third way to work with these triangles. So again, going back to our example of working with the police and a new vision, I can use now the new vision as the activating force and the police as the restraining force, and I can leave the reconciling force and what gets created in the center. I can sort of let those be I can discover what those are like in the field. So I can step into the field of the activating force, which is my vision. I can step into now the field of the restraining force, which is the police. I can feel now, what does the reconciling force feel like between these two other forces? And then going into the center, what does the creation feel like? Well, I hope I would love, if you use this exercise, send me a message if you want to. You can find me at expandedknowing.com. Thank you so much.